well-being is about transformation. It's about habits. What habits do you take on, and what habits do you change? How do you transform yourself?
Hello, my name is Renae Leith-Manos. Welcome to this podcast, Where To From Here, featuring conversations about luxury travel and how it's changing in every pocket of the globe. So today we're going to one of the most exhilarating and spiritual parts of the world, and that's the Himalayas in India. I was only physically there at the end of last year, so pretty recently, when I stayed at the unbelievably luxurious and life-changing luxury resort, Ananda, which I've written about and posted loads of podcasts about already. I'm going to talk to Nikhil Kapur, who actually worked there. He went to the Oberoi School of Hotels, which is a school everyone I speak to who went there is just elevated and at the top of their game in terms of the luxury world of hotels. He's also worked in Ananda. Nikhil, welcome to the show, and thank you for making the time in your busy schedule to speak with us.
Thank you for having me, Renae. Thank you.
Absolutely. And firstly, tell us why so many fantastic luxury hotel leaders around the world started not only in India, but also at the Oberoi School of Hotels.
So, Renae, India, because, hospitality is something that comes very naturally to us. It's part of our culture. It's actually a very our ancient scriptures and all talk about hospitality and how you work with guests and how you create great experience for them. When they come to your home, of course, now they come to our hotels, but, the culture remains the same. So I think India, A, because of our culture, and B, because it's such a beautiful country. I mean, every 2 hours, the landscape changes, the language changes, the colors change. So it's such a variety of experiences that it attracts people from all over the world. And it has for a long time. And of course, the spirituality of the place. The Beatles came to Rishikesh. That's a very famous story. So I think that's the reason why India attracts a lot of luxury travel into it. And one of the reasons why the Oberoi School is so special is because, the focus at the Oberoi School is about, allow me to tell you 2 or 3 things that I learned there, and maybe that'll answer your question.
Well, just let me stop you, because a lot of people go to Switzerland to study hospitality, luxury hospitality. But the Oberoi School, as I say, is really lauded and quite extraordinary that it comes out of India as opposed to Switzerland. So tell us about your experience. I'm interested in the 3 things that you think differentiate it.
So I think at the Oberoi School, the first thing we were taught was details, attention to detail, because no matter how small or how big, details are what make a difference. So I think that's one of the things which makes that program very unique. And the amount of time.
Give us an example of a detail in a luxury hotel that you're talking about.
Okay, so, for example, when we look at lighting, right? When we look at lighting, so often you look at, as a guest, you're walking around, you don't really notice the lumens may be different. The colors, nowadays you get so many colors of lights, warm white, very warm white light, so on and so forth. Those colors may be different. But, when you look at the overall ambience, these things make a difference. Cleaning in the corners. If you're sitting waiting for someone for a meeting and you look at one of the corners across the room and you see that there's some dirt that's stuck in the little wedge over there, then, that means someone's not paid attention to detail, and that looks bad in a luxury hotel. It's how we serve. Are we making sure that when we are serving a dish, all the accompaniments are done properly, they're served nicely, they're served in the right sequence? Is the server offering to assist you with it or not? You see, because at the end of the day, luxury is about how you make people feel. There's no way. Luxury is not a tangible product that you can touch and say, oh, this is luxury. It's about the feeling that you evoke in a person. And once you get into details, that's when you start understanding how to evoke that feeling among your guests. And that's something that the Oberoi School taught us. And one very important thing that it taught us was that no matter what you do, you're a people business, and the guest is the focus of the entire process. Everything has to be built around the guest, because that's the reason you exist. So very often, a lot of even in India now, a lot of schools are making businessmen out of general managers, which is great because at the end of the day, we are a business. But since you've traveled a lot, you've stayed in a lot of luxury hotels. The general manager wears two caps: the host and the businessman, right?
Yes.
So
It's not
out
easy. Not
front,
an easy job.
yeah, it's not easy at all. But when you're out in front, you have that warm, fuzzy, you have the personality which is very welcoming, calm. But the minute you go back, you have to become sometimes a ruthless businessman because your numbers have to work for you, right?
That's true.
So so those are the things that Oberoi got right at a very early stage. I'm talking about they opened in the 60s, and I went to the school in the 90s. So then when the rest of the world was still understanding these concepts, I think they got it right. And a lot of credit has to go to now late Mr. PRS Oberoi, because he was very particular about these things. And of course, at the risk of sounding a little this thing, it was a very difficult selection process. There were thousands of applications,
Yes.
and barely
From
30
around the
odd people
world.
got
From
selected.
around the world. Many
Yes,
people, not just
yes,
local people go there.
yes. Wherever, so basically the difference with this program is that they hire you as management trainees. So it's not a school. You're
Right.
hired, you're employed by them. So they know that you are going to be their next generation of managers.
Right.
So there's a slight difference. So it's like you're being hired for the job and then being trained for it for 2 years and then put into operations. So it's a slightly different approach
So it's 2
to.
years full-time study in India in an institution before you actually then go into the hotel, into your position. And do they all go in as general managers from the Oberoi School?
Yes, yes. So there was a time, in fact, when I joined the company, pretty much every manager had to be from the Oberoi School. And now,
Wow.
of course, the company's grown and there are other institutions who are developing some fantastic resources. So now they've diversified and people from outside are allowed to take management positions. But when we joined, you had to be from the Oberoi School to become a
Right.
manager.
And it's interesting you talk about the founder. Of course, his book, Dare to Dream, which is a wonderful book for anyone who's passionate about
Beautiful book.
hospitality, luxury, India, anything. It's just a really inspirational book where he talks about buying the first hotel, which was in India, not far from where you're sitting now, in fact, in the Himalayas.
It's actually, well, distance-wise, it's a bit because the Himalayas are massive. So it's in a state which is about 2 states away. So
Right.
it's not close, but yeah, it's in the Himalayas, Simla.
Yeah. And he sold his wife's jewelry. The economic times in India were tough at that time, and he took a risk. And it's just a wonderful, inspirational story for young people as well about taking a risk, about change, and look at the success that he's built.
Yes. So in fact, Rai Bahadur is the gentleman you're talking about, was the one who established Oberoi Hotels.
Yes.
And he was, he took it overseas and so on and so forth. But his son, Mr. PRS Oberoi, was also a great visionary. He really took the company to the next level, where we were competing with the Mandarins and the Four Seasons. For an Indian homegrown brand to do that is actually a spectacular achievement. And,
Agreed.
we sort of call them the Vilases, but, the Raj Vilas, the Uday Vilas, the Sukh Vilas, Amar Vilas, these were pioneers in the business. And these were all a brainchild of the second generation, which was Mr. PRS Oberoi, who passed away. And now, of course, Arjun and Vikram are running the company. So third generation of hoteliers.
Yes. And as you say, the Oberoi has achieved spectacular things. But I would go one step further, having just come back less than a week ago from India, where I went with my son to Mumbai, and say that India itself, especially in the luxury arena, has achieved spectacular things. But I have to ask you about the spirituality, because I took my 16-year-old son who'd never experienced it. And of course, as you mentioned, the story of the Beatles came to India to walk away from, drugs. They were very public about this, to find transcendental meditation. They came and lived just near Rishikesh. I've seen where they lived in an ashram, and they gave away drugs, and some of them stayed there for 6 months. But what is it? What is the secret spiritual ingredient about India that attracts so many people, and so many people who are celebrities and high-end type of people?
So, Renae, let me rewind it a little bit and take it back to the spirit of well-being, right? So, as you know, well-being is about transformation. It's about habits. What habits do you do you take on, and what habits do you change? How do you transform yourself? So in India, this is something which has been part of our civilization. People have studied this very deeply. If you look at the Vedas, all our Puranas, these are basically very, very ancient scriptures, which have studied these things at a great, in a great depth. There's so much of information, there's so much of knowledge, there's so much of, these are tried and tested methods. When we talk of Ayurveda, for example, when we talk of yoga, what we see today is a very, very modernized version of what they wrote then. And fortunately, because of the attention it's getting, a lot of us are going back to see what our civilization actually taught us. So why it is interesting is because it's not a subject in that sense. It's a way of life.
Yes.
So when you come in and you see that, you come into my home and you see me following the Ayurvedic principles in my daily life. For example, you read a lot about using turmeric in your food, right?
Yes.
We use turmeric in our food since forever.
Yes,
us,
and now it's the big savior, the big anti-cancer ingredient is turmeric.
Yeah.
Turmeric lattes are available in my cafe down the road here in Sydney.
Exactly. Yeah, so turmeric is something that we've used. I mean, you don't even think twice that you're using turmeric because it's cultural, it's civilizational, it's something that we do. Unfortunately, somewhere while we were becoming a modern nation, we decided to ape the West. I mean, there's no other way to say it, and thought that it was modernity and lost our cultural and civilizational roots. But once the West realized what we had and kind of came back to us and say, hey, you guys have this, why don't you work on this? And, suddenly we realized that we had something absolutely tremendous.
Yes.
And that is what's changing now. So Indians are actually now proud of their civilization. Indians are now going back to what they did for thousands of years. And therefore, when someone comes from overseas or someone from the West or comes to India, they see us living that life and see the benefits of living that life.
Yes.
And once that happens, you call it spirituality, you can call it religion, you can call it whatever. I mean, of course, they are different things, but people understand them differently as well. But whatever you may call it, at the end of the day, it's the way we live. And once you come here and see us living like this, you realize, hey, it works. So that's the reason why even your 16-year-old son, because, he's also sensory, right? He's seeing what's going on, hearing people talking, he's seeing things happening around him. And, he's old enough to realize that it all kind of fits in, it's harmonious. And the minute
what struck him and what struck me in my recent visit to India is that it's not a religion, it's a philosophy that we're talking about. It's a way of living your life. And I have to say that in the West, there's so much on YouTube at the moment about controlling your thoughts, controlling your mind, and therefore living the life that you want. That's been going on in India since the beginning of time. Right?
And actually, the difference is that we don't teach people to control our minds.
Right.
We teach people to understand our minds. That's the difference. Because the minute you understand what's happening with you is the time when you are able to change it.
Yes.
So you don't really control it, because control means you bottle up what is within you. Right. Your emotions, your feelings, good, bad, ugly, whatever, you're bottling it up inside of you. And understanding means that you are sitting with them, you're talking to them like a friend, and you're having a conversation with them and understand where they are coming from and arrive at an agreement that, okay, you want to hang around a little while longer, let's do this. But if you are done, then let's, put you away in a little archive so that you are an experience and no longer an emotion or whatever. So that's the difference. Yeah. So even when, for example, when you are meditating, a lot of people say you control your mind through meditation. Actually not. You're just allowing the mind to be empty. You're removing everything from your mind. You're not controlling anything. So that's the difference. And that's where the spiritual angle comes in.
It's interesting. And in your career, you went from absolute luxury to then you evolved into luxury wellness. So tell me about that journey. What inspired you to go into that arena, which of course is the biggest growth area of luxury travel in the world right now?
Yes. So interestingly, I mean, I'm a hotelier. That's it. I mean, that's what I am. My training, my experience, my work has always been in hotels and resorts for nearly 3 decades now. But in 2013, I got an opportunity to move to Ananda. I was already with the group, but I was running their business hotels. We had our own brand called Ista Hotels, which was our business brand. So 2013, I had the opportunity to move to Ananda, but I came in there as general manager, which was a hoteliering job. I'm not a
So
wellness
just before you go on, so for people who may not know, Ananda would be the most luxurious wellness retreat in India, and people do say the world, and it sits in the Himalayas. I've been there in November. It's in a Maharaja's palace, and they practice what they call emotional healing. And the most famous people in the world go there. Oprah Winfrey, I've forgotten all the celebrities, but there's a ton that go there. But that's not really the point. The point is just how magical and transformative the process of going there is. So sorry, please continue.
That's probably all right. You had to introduce. So yeah, so 2013 is when I moved to Ananda, and I went there to run the hotel operation, the resort operation. I mean, that's what I did. But when I went there and I started understanding a little bit about the programs, I started understanding a little bit about the modalities, the methodologies that were used. Um, it was very interesting because it was something which I had heard about all my life. Like I said, it's part of our civilization, but I'd never really practiced or experienced. So when I went there, I saw it firsthand, and more importantly, I saw the difference it was making to our guests. We had people coming in on wheelchairs and walking out, and in 15 days, I mean, they were such a transformation. We had people coming back year after year, and you could see that their whole life had changed, their experiences had changed, how they lived life had changed. They were coming in as different people every time they came to the resort. So I saw this firsthand, and therefore I got very interested in understanding how this works. So again, like I keep saying, I'm not a wellness practitioner, so my knowledge of this subject is primarily as a user. I'm not a practitioner. So, but because I have interacted with so many practitioners, I have had to understand the programs, I have a slightly deeper appreciation of well-being done in a holistic manner. And that is something that really excited me. And that's the reason why I chose to stay in wellness. I was there for about 8 years. And then when I moved on and decided that I wanted to do something of my own, unfortunately, that was the time of the pandemic. So, it took a little while to get things going, but great. I mean, it was a learning, and we moved ahead from that. And so when I
just let me stop you. When your time at Ananda, what is the biggest problem in the world right now that people are facing, humanity is facing? I mean, you've been sitting at the coal face of it, sitting in Ananda for 8 years.
Yeah. So I think the number one problem in the world today is mental wellness, mental health, because at the end of the day, well-being is broadly classified into physical, spiritual, and mental well-being, right? But the mental well-being is the most impacted by either of the three not being in harmony. If you're physically not well, if you're spiritually not aligned, and of course, if you have a mental health issue, the mind is what is impacted the most. And the mind, unfortunately, is the most difficult part of the body to align, because you can't, like I said earlier, you can't control the mind. The mind will do what the mind does. So I think mental health is probably the number one issue that we saw people coming in with. Of course, there are physical issues, but a lot of them were manifestations of the mind, because if your mind is not at peace, it does manifest itself in your body. So uh, understanding where they came from, understanding what their experiences were, understanding why they were there, because well-being has to be very target oriented. You can't just come in, do a few spa treatments and go away thinking that everything is going to be fine.
Sure.
No.
But why is this all happening now? Why is this mental wellness such a focus, particularly in the Western world of life, and such a challenge? Why now?
So my view is that, one, of course, because of the chaos that we survive in now, world is just becoming more and more chaotic, more and more noisy, more and more crowded, more and more complex. Technology was supposed to make it easier for us, but it's making it more difficult. That is one. And I think also again here the pandemic played a role because, we had a lot of time with ourselves. We were not distracted. We were
True.
locked up. We were in our homes. Suddenly we were, a lot of us were alone. A lot of us were with family who we had never experienced in that sort of a environment because, every
Yes,
day you go away, you come back in the evening. It's a totally different experience.
it's true.
So I think it focused a lot of attention on our mental well-being. I won't say health issues, but I'll say the mental well-being, that people began to understand themselves better. They wanted to read their emotions better. They wanted to
Mm,
work with their feelings better. So that I think that really triggered this whole wave of focus on mental health and mental well-being.
mm. That's
That's where
interesting.
it came from. Yeah, yeah.
And do you
Because
think it's the same in India? Is
oh,
India?
absolutely.
Sorry.
More so, Renee, because unfortunately in India, we still have a lot of stigma attached to mental well-being. So, it was a very big change for us because we realized that it's important and we realized that we need to focus on that as well.
Yes.
And there's a lot of so people started researching mental health, people started approaching mental health professionals. And I think there still is a lot of stigma. It's not easy to sort of go out in the world and admit that you have a mental health issue in India, but it's getting better.
Anywhere. I would argue that's the same
I suppose,
anywhere.
yeah.
There's shame. There's big shame attached. So
I
what
mean,
do
it's
you think?
like
How do we
you have a
change this?
core.
How do we change this for future generations? I mean, it's all very well to talk about us. We're old relative to the world. What about our children coming up? What do you have any thoughts on how we can change the world?
Yes, very much so. I think so. So my view is that we have to approach it from a position of positivity. We should not say that it is a mental health issue. Talk of mental well-being as a life skill. Don't talk of it as a problem.
Right.
So
Makes
how
sense.
do we? Yeah, that's it. So it's like saying, I mean, why is gymming not a problem? Why don't we have to convince people to admit that they go to the gym?
Mm.
Because we made it
Trendy.
gym training, exactly. So we've made it really cool and hip, and it's a good thing to do. It's the positivity. You're going to build muscle, you're going to build strength. A 16-17-year-old is like really excited about it because it was a very positive approach. Nobody said that, oh, your bones are going to get brittle if you don't go to the gym, or you're not going to be
Yes.
able to move when you're 50 if you don't go to the gym now. So it's the approach. If
Yes.
we are able if we are able to take a positive approach and say, hey, let's talk about mental health, let's talk about mental well-being, and
Yes.
not health as a issue,
Yes.
I think that'll change a lot of people's minds about it.
Well, we do have a whole team of people, young people, mainly from America, online talking about this stuff. Matthew Hussey's in the relationship space. Jay Shetty, a former monk, is also in the relationship and headspace. There's a whole ton of them. Lewis Howes, and they run fantastic
Yeah,
podcasts. And I have to say, they do what you're suggesting. They don't sit there
yeah,
and say you're a loser if you don't have a partner. They say, how do you have a better life? How do you live life to the full when you're single, to attract the right partner, to attract the right life, to have a great time with life, which is what you're saying, right?
correct, absolutely. I mean, it's all about creating a very, very positive aura around the whole subject, rather than so it's like I have the flu can never be positive.
Yes.
So let's not say I have a mental health problem. Let's say that, I'm going to improve I'm going to be mentally very strong.
Yes.
So infuse positivity into it so that you can approach it in a very different way. Of course, I mean, people will have problems. People will still need to go to professionals to seek help, but that's different. But
Yes.
at least
But is it
take
though?
away.
But is it though? I would argue that it's the same thing. And I think seeking a health professional is the same as seeking a PT. If you're excessively overweight and you can't move the weight, you get a professional. And no one
Exactly.
says, oh, you're a loser because you're going to a PT. They go, oh, that's awesome. You're going to look hot in 6 weeks or 3 months or whatever, right?
So also, the what I've learned, and we actually work with as psychologists. We do a lot of mental health work in our programs also that we design for our clients. So what I've learned is that a lot of times these goals are the problem,
Yes.
because each one of us is different. Each one of us has a different way of thinking. We have different experiences. We have different pasts. So it's very hard to convince ourselves that in the current scenario, it's very hard for us to not say, I want to be like this. I think
Yes.
that's another gap. That's what creates the problem. So the
I
minute
agree.
we say, okay, you are what you are how you are, and how can you be the best that you can?
Yes. Yeah,
We
that's
start
true.
that, a lot of these problems will automatically go away.
Yes. So, Nikhil, your new business, is that addressing some of these issues, or tell us about what you're doing now?
So now what we do, Renae, is that we design well-being journeys for hotels and resorts. So our primary business target is wellness resorts, similar to Ananda, who want to bring in transformative programs. We don't really work in the day spa space and all. Of course, you have spa menus, you have a la carte spa options, but we work a lot with clients who are interested in bringing in wellness journeys into their properties. So what we do is I work with a UK-based company who are our partners, and we create these programs and we introduce them to these resorts, and then we integrate them with the entire operation. Because as you know, well-being is not just inside the spa. If you're creating a well-being resort or a well-being destination, everything from pre-arrival to arrival, to stay, to the treatments, to the cuisine, to the checkout, to the post-checkout, everything has to be aligned and harmonized with each other. So my role is to create that entire experience.
Yes.
And our partners who are based out of the UK are the ones who actually put together the programs. So we work with them. And now recently we've tried to take this whole mental health thing forward. We are introducing journaling, for example. I mean, who
Yes.
would think that a spa can offer journaling? But we found that to be a very powerful tool. And we are developing journals with one of our business partners to bring them into the spa programs.
Fantastic.
So we are now creating mental health sections in the spa menu.
That's
so, for
brilliant.
example, visualization meditation is a very powerful tool for mental health.
Yes.
So
Yes.
we've created visualization meditations. We've created the journal. We've taken elements from Ayurveda and from yoga and brought them into the mental health section. So you can actually come in, and we started naming our programs things like peace, calm, spiritual, instead of ache, pain, backache.
Yeah,
So we just
I can see a time in the not so distant future when every single 5-star luxury hotel in the world has a wellness program, and one that you're talking about, not just 4 choices of massage, but mental health programs, yoga, free fitness within every hotel if you want to get up in the morning or at night, all of that. Hyperbaric oxygen, red light. I mean, I do it. This morning I had a cryo and a red light therapy. That's just part of my life. I do that every week. I work out 6 days a week because that's what I need for my mental health to just be on,
Correct. And the thing is that, well, the good thing now is the way where we are today in 2024 is that we have a immense amount of modern knowledge as well.
Yes.
20 years ago, maybe research and all was not this advanced with stem cell and so many things going on. We have such a great and deep understanding of the body that we didn't have earlier. And we still have 5,000 years of knowledge that various civilizations have given us. So combining the two, I think, is tremendously powerful. And that's the way forward. So, recently I was reading about this whole thing about integrated medicine, where you may go in for a surgery, but your recovery may happen through a yoga program, for example. Why not?
Fantastic. Fantastic.
Rehabilitation, physiotherapy can happen through modalities of yoga. Why not? So,
why not?
So those are the kind of things I think the world is probably looking at. And technology is so amazing. With technology, there is so much that you can do. And we have to harness the benefits of both and put them together, and that's the way forward. Since
Totally agree.
we always like to look in well-being, we always want to look forward and not dwell too much in the past. So I think that's the way forward for our business.
No, I agree. And so you yourself, when you travel, do you like to travel in luxury? And how, is wellness always a part of your travel, or what do you look for in your holidays?
So yes, it is. I mean, travel is also about experiences. So when I travel as me as a person. So I too need varied experiences. I don't want to restrict myself just to my professional knowledge. So yes, well-being is a part of my experiences occasionally. Um, Experiential travel, be it the mountains, be it a beach, be it a historical site, those are also part of my learning. And but the interesting part is that uh, wherever we go, if you learn to listen to your mind and your body, your experience becomes much better.
I love that.
Right? Yeah. So when you are visiting, let's say you go to Angkor Wat, I mean, we studied about it in school. It's always
I've been there. I've been there. It's amazing.
You've been there, right?
Mm.
So if you go there and you look at them as architectural ruins, that's just one thing, right? And some people will look at it like that. If you go there and look at it as a temple, that's another thing. If you go there and look at it as one of the greatest spiritual monuments of the ancient times, your whole view changes. So
Well,
if
for
you are
me,
mindful,
of course, you're talking about Angkor Wat in Cambodia. And for me,
yes,
I got up at 5 in the morning and got on a push bike and rode, because for those people who haven't been there, it's very much like uncovering something from the past yourself. That's how you feel, because it's sort of untouched in a lot of ways. It's a World Heritage Site, so no one can touch it or do anything to it. But I sat there and thought, how on earth did they create this? The drive, the spiritual drive of the human beings at that time to create all of those spiritual monuments is phenomenal. And we sit here and complain about, I haven't got enough money or whatever it is. And you think they weren't complaining about anything. They just did it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, so it, again, it comes back to the way we think. It's the way our mind works. How do we set an intention? Do we learn in life how to set proper intentions? Or do we just, or do we just, either it's a leap of faith or is it a flight of fancy? How are we doing it? So it's important to understand, and that's something that our people in our ancient times understood very well. Look at the pyramids, look at the beautiful temples all over the world. I mean, all over India. Look at the Taj Mahal. I mean, look at the imagine when these people sat down and visualized it. What a great intention setting exercise that was.
I mean, the Taj
And then
Mahal, I've also been there. Was it 22 years to build that? 21 or 22 years?
Yeah.
I mean, these days, we want something in 48 hours is too long.
Exactly. With 3D printing, it's not going to create the same experience.
It's true.
So it's a lot of things that we've lost along the way, and it's nothing to do with Indian civilization. Global civilization had these things, because these are not things that exist only in India. Cambodia is not India. Egypt is not India. You look at the beautiful cathedrals and churches in Europe. Those
Machu
are,
Picchu, when you look through the history of that, which I've been there also in South America, there's so much. But look, Nikhil, I could speak to you all day, but we've run out of time, would you believe? But before we go, we ask all of our guests where to from here. And you can talk about what you're doing today, your next project, your next trip, whatever you'd like to share with us.
Okay. So Transformative Wellness, which is our company, is a very young company. It was really established in the middle of 2023. So presently, my entire focus is on growing this company. We are currently doing projects within India. So obviously the next step is to look at projects overseas. So right now, my entire focus is in growing Transformative Wellness. There is nothing else that I'm looking at. There's no other, stream that I'm working on. But how do we take Transformative Wellness to the next level? How do we create well-being journeys that are unique, that are interesting, and effective? Like I said, unless habits change, no transformation will happen.
Yeah, so that's a great quote. Unless habits change, transformative wellness won't happen. And I have to let you know, if you're unaware, that here in Sydney, wellness is a big priority for a lot of people. It's a big focus. 6 a.m. there's a lot of people in the gym. Even here, it's sort of wintry weather at the moment. I think you should
Okay.
come to Australia at some stage and bring transformative wellness, because
Thank
I
you.
think it will be embraced.
Thank you. Thank you. I will for
Absolutely.
sure.
But thank you for your time, Nikhil. It's wonderful to talk to you, and I'd love to speak with you again, perhaps in 6-12 months, when we can hear more of what you're doing with your business.
Pleasure. Thank you, Renae. Thank you so much for the opportunity to chat with you. It was really a pleasure. Thank you.
Absolutely. Namaste. Thank you. Don't forget to subscribe here and follow us on Instagram and Facebook for regular travel updates. You can also hear our episodes on Spotify and Apple Podcasts.